There we go. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the most fundamental, central chapter in all of Tanya. In fact, after this, I don't even know why we have to learn. It's it. It will make a siyum. Well, a congratulatory concluding party. Always a reason to say l'chaim. I think we're getting old. We used to start off the Tanya class with beer, whiskey. Now it's tea. I'm telling you how the mighty have fallen. Okay, so we're talking about in this chapter the most important, fundamental mitzvah in the entire Torah, which is love your fellow Jew as yourself. Come on, man.
I was going to say, don't take any idols.
Nah, don't take any idols. An idiot worships an idol. The problem is you make yourself into an idol. The most important fundamental.
Basically everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
All these people are basically idol worship.
Love your fellow Jew.
So how do we do that mitzvah? So in last class, just a short synopsis, we learned that it all depends. If you make your body primary and your soul secondary, so yeah, the other person gets in the way. How can I love you? Before there were 6 cupcakes, and now there's 3 cupcakes, and I'm eyeing the cupcakes, thinking, oh no, if I don't take one now, it might not be enough, right? Because I'm thinking about my soul, I'm my body. So when a person makes their body the primary, then you are a threat, right? There's one less cup of tea, there's one less cupcake, there's one less. For proof, come on Shabbos for the Kiddush, and you see how people make their bodies the primary. But if you make your soul the primary and your body the secondary, so then not only is a Jew not a threat, a Jew's an asset. Because there's something that Jew has that you don't have. And when that Jew does a mitzvah, it complements you. In fact, it's a very famous story that the Chabad, or Lubavitch, it was called Lubavitch, or it was called Chabad. The second Chabad Rebbe, his name was Dave Ber. He was the Alter Rebbe's son. And he had a lot of chassidim. And people would come to the middle. It's called the middle Rebbe. The middle Rebbe. There's no picture of him, or painting. For sure, not a picture. He passed away in 1827. And people were coming for problems. And he said, "Listen, I can't see everybody. Just not enough time in a day. Why don't you go speak to your friend?" And you go speak to your friend, a person who cares about you and loves you. And he said, it's 2 godly souls against 1 animal soul. When the Chassidim heard that, they said, doesn't make any sense. It's 2 godly souls against 2 animal souls, right? 2 people, each one has a godly soul, each one has an animal soul. So why did the middle Rebbe say 2 godly souls against 1 animal soul? No, obviously the Rebbe didn't make a mistake. So I forgot who it was that, I think it was Hillel Paritcher, explained. He said, because it's like this. The Rebbe knew exactly what he was talking about. My godly soul doesn't care about you. My animal soul, doesn't care about you, right? My animal soul cares about me. Over. You think it gives me pleasure when you have cake? No. In fact, my animal soul feels threatened the fact that you're having cake. My animal soul wants cake. And it sees you having cake, oy vey. Not enough cake. Like, for example, you go to the store before a hurricane, everyone's hoarding, why do you need 87 rolls of toilet paper? What about the family that doesn't have? I don't care about them. I only care about me. So you come to me with a problem you have, let's say, with your car, right, or whatever it is, or some problem you're having. You know what my animal soul does? It goes to sleep. There's nothing in it for me. Goodbye. But my godly soul, because it feels the oneness we're fellow Jews, it cares about it. It cares about you. So therefore, when 2 Jews meet and they're discussing an issue, it's 2 godly souls against one animal soul. So that's how you do, obviously, Surah. That's how you do the mitzvah of loving your fellow Jew as yourself. When you make your neshama, the fact that we have one Father, we all come from one source. How can I love this guy? The Alter Rebbe saying, I'm so much better than he is. I'm a great scholar, and this guy's a simpleton. The Alter Rebbe said, you have no idea. This goes going back to chapter 2. You have no idea where that soul comes from. Maybe he's a very great soul, born into a very simple family. So the fact that he doesn't read so well, that doesn't mean he's a lower soul. Could be his soul is loftier than yours. So you got to love everybody the same. Now the Alter Rebbe is going to address a very basic question. A question in Jewish law. What about if the guy's a sinner? He's a bad guy. I would dare to say it, what people will call a bad Jew. Right? Do we love them too? I mean, now to back it up with the Talmud says that you have to hate the sinner. So how can you reconcile loving a Jew and hating the sinner at the same time? You can't say, okay, you're a sinner, you're not Jewish. Obviously, it doesn't work. There's no such thing as someone more Jewish or less Jewish. It could be more sins or less sins. But is the sinner less Jewish than someone else?
No.
So is he deserving less love?
No. You don't like his actions, but you love his inner soul.
Oh, so let's learn inside. Bottom of page 425 in the old print, where it says 10th of Adar. What page over there? Do you know?
10th of Adar is, I got 9th of Adar.
10th of Adar / 26 Adar 1.
I have.
Where it says, and for the Talmudic statement. You got it?
No.
Second. You too early in the chapter. Here.
Oh, okay.
436. 436 in the new print. Mash Kasuv the Gemara. What about how can we love every Yid? It says in the Gemara. It says this is a Gemara in Tractate Pesachim. Shemisha roye bechaveroi shechata. Someone who sees his friend is sinning. Mitzvah, it's a commandment. You have to listen nicely. You have to hate him. The gam leimer l'rabbi she used to say. And what if this guy's teacher doesn't know about it? So you have to go to the guy and say, hey, do you know what your student's doing? Your student's a sinner. So how does it conform to what we said before about loving every Jew? So Alter Rebbe says, you have to pay attention how to read the Gemara. So most people look at the words. If someone sees a Jew sinning, you hate him. Alter Rebbe says, how does the Gemara call that fellow Jew? Look at the text. One who sees his. No. Look at the text we just read. Bottom of it was a 436. One who sees his. The Talmudic statement. One who sees his.
One who sees his. I don't see that here.
Friend.
Okay.
The word over there is friend. What does a friend mean? Friend means a patriot.
One who sees his friend sinning.
What does the word friend mean? Friend means you're equal. You're obviously friends with somebody you have common interest, right? A friend. If he's not the same, he's not a friend. He's an acquaintance, right? Over here, what does a friend mean? Friend means over here somebody who's obviously, if you know the Gemara to hate him, then you're obviously an educated person. That means the other guy you want to hate is your friend. That means he's also educated. That means he knows exactly what he's doing. That means he received a Jewish education. He knows exactly what's wrong, why it's wrong, and he's doing it anyway. So maybe such a guy you have to hate. But what if a guy's not your friend, meaning he's not your equal? He then didn't get a Jewish education. He doesn't know better. Right? The guy is not eating kosher. Why? Because he doesn't know. You think it's a mitzvah to hate that Jew too?
To hate a Jew? No.
So you can't hate him. You can't hate him at all. So let's look at the Alter Rebbe's words inside. Hainu bechaveroi. That only applies to one companion. And look at the fine print over there. One's equal in the study of Torah and observance of mitzvahs. So the sinner in question, the Gemara over there, is a scholar, Torah observant scholar. What happened? He lapsed. And in this case, you can't compare sins. You can't compare a guy who's learned and knows his sin, if he doesn't put on tefillin, and the guy who never went to yeshiva, met a rabbi once and told him, you got to put on tefillin, and he doesn't put on tefillin. You think it's the same? Maybe the lack of action is the same, but you can't. They don't carry the same weight, right? In the criminal justice system, we know that it's not just about the action; it's about the intent, right?
Right.
Same thing is in the Avera justice system. It's not only about the action; it's about the person. What do you mean about the person? About the circumstance, about his childhood, his education. Not every sin's the same. The action might be the same. It can be the same action. Right? Two people eating on Yom Kippur. One's a sin, one's not. Right? I don't know. One's sick in the hospital. I mean, you can't. It's not just about the action, right? So that's why Pirkei Avos says, don't judge a person till you stand in his place. You don't know. We spoke about this. We mentioned this in a different chapter. Maybe it's his place causing him to sin. Remember we learned this, that maybe you're doing a lot of judging because you sit in the office of Chabad Permanent Pines, and you're not surrounded by all the different problems, all the different enticements, and
Your environment is different.
yeah. How do you know? Maybe you'd be a lot worse if you were in that environment. You can judge somebody who you grew up with, went to yeshiva together, you learned the same, and the guy knows better. So it's a question. How could the Jew do it? But a guy who's not the same as you, how can you judge him? And even when you judge him, and even when you say, quote unquote, hate him, let's learn another caveat, another condition. And we'll learn note 8 in the bottom in a second. And you hate him, but kvar kiyam boy mitzvah, and you've already fulfilled the mitzvah, the adage, what the Torah says. You have to rebuke your fellow. It means if you see that Jew doing something wrong, and this Jew is your equal, you can't just hate him. You got to go over to the guy and say, hey, what you're doing is against halacha. You have to rebuke him, because everybody has lapses in judgment, right? The guy, and sometimes we're about to sin, and we need some we need encouragement. There's a story of a rabbi. He was a great man. I can't remember. Very bad with names. And man, I heard the story. I read the story a long time ago. But anyway, he was in the bottom floor, and there's a woman on the top floor. She was sick or something, or he was sick, and all of a sudden he started screaming, "Fire!" People came running. So there was no fire. It says in him the Yetzer Hara was burning as a fire, right? Sometimes you're in a situation, no matter who you are, your evil inclination can get the best of you. So you need a friend to say, hey, no, that's wrong. Don't do that. So let's say you go to a guy who's your equal, and you go to him and say, you really shouldn't be doing that. And then the guy says, go for laikai. Oh, and he says, we you says you should rebuke your fellow, meaning your friend who's equal to you in Torah. And still he knows better, and you rebuked him. You went over to him, and you didn't do it in a condescending way, because there's a way to rebuke. Jerry Seinfeld has this joke about men who drive by a woman and they honk their horn, right? He said, "What do you expect a woman to do, right? Just to kick off their heels and run after the car?" I mean, some people want to feel better about themselves and say, "You know what you are? You're a sinner. Ha! I feel better about myself." That's not the way. There's a way to rebuke somebody to make them, to try to guide them to the way. So then, if a guy who knows better and you have a relationship with him and you went over to him and you try to chastise him and redirect him in the right way, and he blows you off, then we can talk about hating him. Let's look at note number 8. The Rebbe points out something. Just the fine print over there on the bottom. Yeah. Note number 8. You have it? Is it note number 8 in your book also?
No.
From a note by the Rebbe Shlita, apparently. We have different text. One second.
No, different text.
Where are you? We will take the previous page. Yeah, sorry, previous page.
Okay.
So from a note from the Rebbe. Apparently the Rebbe is addressing the difficulty inherent in the requirements to hate a pious and scholarly Jew who lapses on occasion, but to love one who's far removed from Torah and observance of study, observance of Torah. The reason for this differentiation cannot be, says the Rebbe, that one might learn from the lapses of the pious Jew. If you see a religious Jew doing something wrong, someone might learn from him. On levels similar to one's own, but less likely to learn from a behavior of a Jew who's not religious. And the Rebbe says the Rebbe rejects this on several grounds. Number one, if the requirement to hate the sinner was based on the fear that one might learn from him, then the hatred should be directed at the sinner who is in contact with one itself at any level, not necessarily one's peer in Torah observance and scholarship. We're afraid you're going to learn from this guy, so you have to hate him. Why would the Alter Rebbe say he's equal to you in Torah scholarship? Who cares about that? Number two, to avoid the imitation of the sinner, it would be enough to keep one's distance. Why does the Gemara say, hate the sinner? The Gemara should say, stay away from him. This way you don't learn from him. Number three, the Rebbe continues. The whole concept that someone is to be hated, not because of something hateful about him, but to protect the hater. So I hate this guy not because of him, because of me. I hate him, so protect me. Meaning, nothing really wrong with him, something's wrong with me. I might learn from him, that's why. I mean, I don't know, right? It seems kind of far-fetched. Chassidus requires one to actually suffer harm himself. If failure to do so might not lead to the remote possibility of harming his fellow. Such a doctrine would certainly not, without confidence, a suggestion of definitely harming one's fellow by hating him, in order to forestall the possible harm to oneself. You see, because we're saying you have to hate him because maybe something is going to happen. It's so far. Clearly, then, the requirement to hate the sinner is not intended to solve one's own problem of learning. It's not because of you, but the Alter Rebbe's differentiation between one peer in Torah mitzvahs and others is thus grounded in the reason given within the text. Now we'll understand. Okay. So if there's a guy who's religious and he's your friend and you chastise him in a proper way and everything else, and he doesn't care, fine. Avol, but that's usually not the case. Mi she'ein chaveri, someone who's not your friend. And what does it mean a friend? Doesn't mean you're not friendly with him. He's not your companion. He's not your equal in Torah and mitzvahs. And therefore, maybe the guy doesn't know better, right? Imagine your tefillin is supposed to be in your middle of your head. Imagine the guy's tefillin is to the side, which is not proper. Would you go over to him and say, "Hey, you heretic, you sinner, burn in hell"?
No good.
Yeah, exactly. You tell him, I don't know if you realized, center your tefillin, and the guy's gonna center his tefillin, right? So would you go over to a Jew who maybe doesn't know better? Or maybe he knows about the mitzvah, but he never knew the value of the mitzvah? Because there's two parts to knowing a mitzvah. There's knowing about the mitzvah, and knowing the preciousness and the value that brings to the mitzvah. That maybe the guy knows, let's say, there's a concept of being in Shalom Rosh Hashanah, but he doesn't know that Rosh Hashanah we're crowning God King, right? And then Rosh Hashanah we're God's special people. I mean, maybe he doesn't know. So if there's the choice between the Miami Dolphins going to the game and sitting in shul to hear a sermon.
It's not on Sunday this year. Rosh Hashanah.
Oh no, all right.
No, but we're good.
So we're good. Huh.
It's not on Sunday this year.
All right, thank God. All right. So first of all, number one, he's not your equal in scholarship. Number one. Number two, let's say he is an equal, but you don't have that sprach with him. You think just because a guy is wearing black pants and a white shirt, you can just start screaming at him? Before you rebuke somebody, there has to be a. They tell the old joke.
A relationship.
Tell this old joke of this guy who had a crush on this girl, but he was too shy to go up there, so he would follow her around, right, from a distance. And the girl once found a boyfriend. She's walking on the street. She's holding his hand, and he got so frustrated. He walks over to her, slaps her. It's over. Right? I mean, he doesn't. I mean, you don't go over to somebody and rebuke them. Even let's say he knows, but you don't. I wasn't in the restaurant with my wife in the Catskills. There was the guy who was wearing black pants, white shirts. He walked into the restaurant, no yarmulke. Cyril says to me, "Go over to him, tell him he's not wearing yarmulke." I says, "I'm not in the judgment business." I don't know. What if he decided? My wife says, "Doesn't make sense. That guy's dressed like an Orthodox Jew." It fell off. I said, "I don't know. I don't want." Cyril says, "Please." So I went over to him and said, "I'm sorry. I don't know if you realized, and you're not wearing yarmulke." He said, "Oi!" You know what I'm saying? And he ran out of the store. He ran to his car. He must have fallen in his car. He didn't realize, right? You'd imagine I would have said, I would have ran over to him and said, "Sinner, burn in hell, thee, and for not wearing a yarmulke." Excuse me, do I know you? Meaning, there's two parts to it. Number one, you have to know the guy could be a viable recipient to the rebuke, because he knows better. If he doesn't know what's wrong, then he's not a recipient, right? Number two, you have to have a relationship with him. Otherwise, why should he? You could be 100% right. The Rebbe many times would say that messages has to be custom made to the recipient. The message could be 100% right, but if it's not tailored to the recipient, then it's lost.
Don't sink in.
Yeah. Not only that, it could have the opposite effect. So to hate such a sinner is surely unjustifiable. Since no sin that he commits, it's considered deliberate. Amar Hillel Zakin, to such a Jew, Hillel tells us, in chapter 1 of the Ethics of our Fathers, it says you should be a student of Aaron. Hillel said that. Oyev Shalom, love peace. Oyev Sabrias, love creatures, love Hashem's creatures. Now, it doesn't mean love ants and cockroaches. We're talking about people over here. So what kind of term is that? Oyev is Sabrias, love creatures. Like the saying, right? You remember that line from Fiddler on the Roof?
Which one?
Where Tevye is talking to Chave. She wants to go with a Cossack. He says, "Chave, you cannot go with that creature. Stop calling him a creature. He has a name." Of course he has a name. All creatures of God have a name, right? What are you calling a Jew a creature? So the Rebbe pointed out, Chassidus points out, that let's say this Jew, you can't find any redeeming factor of him. He's such a miserable guy. The only thing he has going for him is that God created him. He's a creature. You have to love that Yid. And the most important is, Mekarven Torah. The Rebbe spoke about this a lot. Bring them close to Torah. This is one of the biggest problems in the past few hundred years that Chassidus is fighting. It doesn't say bring Torah close to them. Oh, because the guy is distant from Torah, so I'll compromise on some values to make the Torah more amicable and more approachable. No. Torah, the standard of the Torah for 3,000 years is the standard. We don't change. We bring them close to Torah. Loimar, the same. Although these creatures referred to, they are distant from Hashem at the present moment. They're distant from serving Hashem. They don't serve God. And the only thing we can call them are creatures. We have to draw them with bounds of love. You love every Yid. You know how hard it is to be angry at a person that loves you? It's impossible. It's impossible. We're going to learn this in later chapters. It's impossible to hate somebody or to be angry at somebody who's showing you love. It's impossible.
That includes your significant other. Is there an exception for that at times?
What do you mean? Jackie Mason would say.
It's a strong word,
Well,
So Jackie Mason has a joke.
Angry is a better word.
As Jackie Mason has this great joke where even when Jewish couple are fighting, and they say terrible things, they still have to add them. I can't stand you, honey. So you drive me crazy over here. That means our job. If you meet a Jew that doesn't know better, you meet a Jew that wasn't witness to the beauty of Torah. I mean, imagine you standing in the base of the Mikdash and everything's going on. You can't feel it's hard, Like we're going to the oil, right? You don't have to convince a Lubavitcher to go to the oil. If we stood by Farbringen and you watch the videos, I mean, just to be a part of that, to go to a guy, you want to go to the oil, you're gonna pass judgment. Our job is to love every single Yid, no matter what. No caveats, no asterisk over there. You love every single Yid. Why? Because most, one of the questions that Chabad gets a lot. It says in the Gemara, or in the Code of Jewish Law, I think it's also quoted, that somebody who desecrates Shabbos openly, you can't count them for a minyan. So B'chal Shabbos Pharisee, you can't count them for a minyan. He's not. It's a whole question of counting for minyan. Is he a Yid or not? So that when Chabad opened Chabad houses, and we say, how do you count this guy for a minyan? The guy doesn't keep Shabbos. Well, how do you know? You know if the guy doesn't keep Shabbos, right? Right? Without getting into details, So I don't remember who authored this answer. He said, because you're learning the Gemara wrong. Mechal Shabbos, somebody who knows Shabbos, right? And he desecrates Shabbos before I say openly. What does it mean openly? Openly means blatantly. If you don't know, you're not desecrating Shabbos blatantly. If a guy doesn't know that something is not kosher, is he doing it blatantly? No, he's doing it. He doesn't even know it's wrong, right? Blatantly means there's a element of intent, of wanton indifference. I know, and I don't care. That's what befahesh means. That's what it means blatantly. There's another law that says a Jew that was raised amongst Gentiles, meaning he was kidnapped as a child, which happened a lot. It's called tinuk shenishpa. He was raised amongst Gentiles. He never got a Jewish education. So the halacha talks about that it's a mitzvah to bring him close and to educate and be patient with him, and slowly but surely, right? So it's the halacha today. All Jews that didn't get a Jewish education have the halacha of tinuk shenishpa, a child raised amongst the Gentiles. He never got a Jewish education. How are you supposed to know? Rabbi Akiva didn't get a Jewish education until he was 40 years old?
Who?
Rabbi Akiva. You know what? Imagine they would have told him, you, get out. We never would have had Rabbi Akiva. A guy comes to learn Aleph Beis at 40 years old. Why? Because he had it's not like he didn't know about religious people. He didn't know. He had a whole picture in his head what religious people were. We reject a Jew. Why? Because you had the privilege of having the kosher bakery and your parents send you to yeshiva. That makes you better. That gives you the right to reject another Jew, to hate another Jew. It makes you feel better about yourself. No, you can't. Our job, like Hillel says, to love every Yid. And what if the guy says, I'm not interested? Okay. The kulei high. Let's continue. The kulei high. And maybe, maybe, yachal akarvan terv v'esel Hashem. And maybe through your love and your acceptance, and you're saying, listen, I love you because you're my brother. Not because what you could do for me, because you're my brother. You're my brother, you're my sister. And we're one people. And maybe when he sees that, he'll say, who taught you to act this way? The Torah. Let me find out a little bit more. Maybe I'll bring him to the Torah. And let's say he doesn't. Let's say he said, okay, Chabad gives me good cholent, gives me good challah. I like coming to Chabad. But Shabbos kosher, not for me. All right, behein loy, and let's say not. Loy hifsid schar mitzvahs avos reim. So what happened? You did the mitzvah of loving your fellow Jew for free. Does the Torah say you only have to love religious Jews? The Torah says you have to love every Jew. The Sephardi, the Ashkenaz, the Yemenite, and even the Jews that don't keep Shabbos and don't go to Nova festivals and You think what happened? The Jews that went to Nova festivals, we said, oh, no, it's okay, let Hamas keep them. God forbid. What do you mean? They're all our Jewish brothers and sisters, right? You have to love every single Jew. Torah doesn't make distinctions. The Rebbe would always tell people, oh, I'm an Orthodox Jew, I'm a Reformed Jew. The Rebbe said, nowhere in the Torah does the Torah make distinctions.
Yeah, just tribes.
That's not the same Jew, but it's the groups. But as far as there's no levels of Jews, every Jew is Reyacha, your fellow. So let's say you're trying to show a fellow Jew the beauty of Torah through Avos Yisrael, and he doesn't take the message. Okay, so did you lose out? Did the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael?
So you're like a team almost, and if you're kind of like a team, and if everyone does what they're supposed to do, then you get stronger.
Exactly. And that the Rebbe spoke about before the 6 Day War, and before the Yom Kippur War, that when Jewish people do mitzvahs, even though all over the world, it helps the people in Israel, it helps the Israeli army, because we are one unit. And let's finish up the chapter. Furthermore, let's go back to what we were saying before. That there's a guy who's your friend and knows better, and he got a Jewish education, and and you tried to rebuke him, and he didn't listen, and that's the guy you have to hate, right? We just narrow it down the Jewish people to like your immediate circle, right? Guys who are close to you, you rebuked them, and he didn't stop. He didn't cease and desist from his sin. That according to the Gemara, you have to hate him. Doesn't mean you gotta hate him entirely. You still gotta love him. We don't push him off the cliff. Mitzvah alav gamken. You also have to love him, but you can't love him and hate him. Which one? So the Alter Rebbe says, "Shtei in him emes." They're both true. You're right.
Sin, love the person.
Right. You're right, and you're right. They both can't be right. You're also right. What do you hate? You hate the Yetzer Hara. You hate the fact that there's something. So let's say, God forbid, a parent has a kid who's alcoholic, a drug addict. God forbid. We should never know such things. But he stops loving his kid.
No.
Because he loves his kid. But he hates the fact that the kid is possessed by this inclination to self-destructive behavior. You don't hate the kid, you hate the Yetzer Hara. So you hate the bad in him. Because no one is absolutely bad, no one's absolutely good, right? So a Yid has this holiness that's uncorruptible. Which is this godly spark inside them. That's giving them this godly life. Now one may be faced with the anomaly of a fellow Jew who you must both love and hate. But what attitude should he adopt toward the person as a whole, who possesses both good and evil? When, for example, a sinner requests a favor from him. There's a guy who's a sinner. He's your friend, right? So you're allowed to hate him. That's it. Guy comes over to you for a favor. Which emotion should come out? The hate or the love?
The love.
Alter goes on to say that one's relationship with the sinner as a whole should be guided by love, by arousing one's compassion. One restricts one's love on hatred, so it's directed solely at the hate is only at the evil within the sinner. And to have compassion on this guy. Look, think about it. Here, a guy is in the neshama. It's such a special neshama. A guy learned Torah and everything else. And how far the neshama has fallen. You know, there's some stories in Jewish history of people who were great men and suffered a great descent. It's a big rachmanis. One thing, the guy doesn't know any better, right? He doesn't live a Torah lifestyle. So it's sad. Imagine there was a guy named Jonathan Hyrcanus, Yochanan. He was a Kohen Gadol in Second Temple times. And he was the high priest. He walked into the Holy of Holies. Towards the end of his life, he became an heretic. An atheist. An atheist, but a heretic. A heretic. He didn't believe in the oral law. Can you imagine what kind of descent that is for the godly soul? It's a godly soul that walked into the Holy of Holies many times and now doesn't believe in the validity of the Talmud, the Mishnah, oral law. You have to feel bad. It's a Rahmanis. He begins his godly soul is in a state of exile, in the evil Masiter Achra from the other side. That in the wicked people, the evil is overpowering the holiness. For Rahmanis and compassion, Mevateles Hasina. It banishes and annuls the hatred. So you could have a guy who's bad, doesn't deserve something, but you have compassion on him. He's a poor, unfortunate soul, and arouses the love. The only time we're not supposed to have compassion is when Hashem commands us don't have compassion. There's a certain time Hashem commands us don't have compassion. Like Hashem commanded Shaul, I want you to wipe out Amalek, tribe of Amalek, no compassion. I say wipe them out, but that's the anomaly. Now you may ask why, we're not getting into that. But other than that, you have compassion. And in fact, Maimonides says that one of the three signs of a Jewish person is he's generous, he's modest, and he's compassionate. If a person doesn't have any of those three hallmarks, you can question his Jewish heritage. You should look into genealogy, 23andMe, because there might be something wrong, a fork in the road over there. It doesn't belong. Like it's known, Yaakov is compassion that redeems Avram. What does it mean? That redeems Avram? Because Avram is absolute kindness. Sometimes absolute kindness can be corrupted, like Ishmael. Too much kindness, too much giving. Right? So Yaakov helps rechannel Avram. Allah, v'loy amar David HaMelech alav hashalom. As far as the statement that King David said, the tachlis sinasam, that hate them with commensurate hatred, reserving no love. Ella alamini ba'birkaisim. These refer to Jewish heretics and atheists. She'elehem chelek b'elokei Yisrael. That the Gemara talks about in Shabbos. We're talking about people that know better. Not only that they know better, but they go out of their way to corrupt the Jewish community. They are chayte machti. They are sinner and they make others sin. Those people are a big problem. But Chassidus talks about even those people, you have Rahmanis on their godly soul. But those people you really have to keep at a distance. You can't get into conversations with these people. And look for the story, by the way. There was a guy who was Jewish.
You're a product of your environment.
Oh yeah. There was a guy who was Jewish, and he converted to Christianity. So he decided who's the greatest prize to try to convince of his stupidity? The Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Yeah.
I kid you not. The story's a real story. It's on video.
True story?
True story. So the Rebbe's giving out dollars on Sunday. You know, they're outside the Rebbe's office.
Yeah.
And he comes by the Rebbe. He's not wearing, he's not outward, he's dressed like a regular person. He tells the Rebbe how he found the light and yada yada. It's on video. I can find the video for you, whatever it is. And he wants the Rebbe to also, and he wrote a book. And he wants the Rebbe the Rebbe should understand his ways. The Rebbe tells him, you know what your problem is? You're sick. And you don't realize how sick you are. That's the worst part. He says, I give you a blessing that one day you should have some clarity who you are. And he gave the Rebbe the book. The Rebbe took the book with his left hand, which the Rebbe usually did everything right. The Rebbe took and threw it. He said, I took the book from you only so you should have one less book to give away. And the Rebbe took it and threw it.
The guy was Jewish. He converted.
The guy was Jewish, yeah. To Christianity. Like 15, 20 years later, some Jewish boys were on the street in, I think, Amsterdam. Belgium, Amsterdam, Antwerp, or Amsterdam, I'm not sure. And they bumped into this guy. And he left his, the Christianity, and he came back. Yeah, because that's who we are. Our job, and who knows what this guy,
You really can't convert to this.
I think on Shabbos I told the story of the guy who came from Israel. Remember on Shabbos, right? Sometimes you have these people that are very susceptible, and unfortunately, these people in other communities show them love, and they don't go to those places of worship because they actually believe. They go because that's where they're finding friendship and brothership, and it's a slap in the face to us. It reflects poorly in our community. They see a Jew in need, you have to help him. And I'll have one final story. This story has a little bit of vulgar language in it, but it's a good story. So one time I was going around the hospital, and to my I don't do it as often as I should. I walk into an older lady. I think she was 99 or 100. She passed away like 102 or something. 102. Tiny lady. Tiny person. I said, hi, I'm Mordechai. I said, finally! She said, finally? Why finally? Yeah, the other day, says, a member of a different clergy, I'm not going to say which religion, because this is going on online, came in and started talking to me about all that, I don't know what it is. And I told him, listen, sir, I'm Jewish. You can get out of my room. She had her head screwed on straight. And she wasn't she wasn't, and she didn't know, right? But she knew she was a Yid. You have to love every Yid. Love every Yid. Have a good week.